Hi, this is Dr. Scott. I'm laughing because I just had to turn off my phone before I started here. Okay, let's talk about the national sales tax. And I'm going to bring up some of the tariff kind of idea. We'll bring up a few areas in there that kind of go. And then I'll show you a couple videos. And that hopefully the PowerPoint will help you, present it, effectively in your brain so that you have the right viewpoint. I see a lot of people struggling with, they see a famous whatever, even President Trump, and they're saying something, but they're not always saying what you think they're saying. And yet, most people are so honest, they just want to hear the words, straightforwardly, right? Most people, it doesn't matter, left, right, it doesn't matter, men, women, that's not relevant. They just want you to say what you mean. And unfortunately, in this time frame, when there's war going on around us, and this is the some people call it fifth generation warfare kind of thing, however you want to think of that. They can't tell you the way that it really is. Now, every once in a while, you get someone say something, you're like, wow, that makes sense. Okay, so let's let's bring that up here. So as we bring this up to stage, I always say this. I mean, this is the eighth. This could be the ninth, but I think it's the eighth. We're going to talk about national sales tax versus IRS issues. So these are pieces of the puzzle that you look at. Now, I have to say this over and over again. The quantum financial system, or the QFS, is not an account. If you're hearing someone that's bugging you about that, that person is a scammer. And I just deleted a dude off of my channel who was faking acting like me. So I see this all the time. Block and delete the idiots. Okay, you want to know where you want to go to drscottyoung.com. You can download information. I have a lot of that stuff on there. Okay, now I want to show you something Vivek actually wrote. He goes, rules for thee and not for me. Something that many of us have thought over and over again. Thousands of IRS and employees and contractual contractors are literally aren't paying their taxes. So Joni Ernst audited the IRS and found that they owe nearly $50 million. Government-wide number of employees, unpaid taxes of 1.5 billion. Like, it's off the chart. And then this person, Jill, talks in there. And that's why I kind of caught it here. Just abolish the IRS. And Jill is so freaking right on. It's not even funny in this way. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the national sales tax, because it's a replacement. Okay. The IRS brings in, no, I want to say about 4.5 excuse me, $4.5 trillion. No one, there is no need for that much money coming into the government. Now, they're always running way above. So, well, maybe they're upwards about $5 trillion. But the budget is $6.7 trillion. Okay, to give you an example of what that would be is like let's say you make $50,000, but it's like you're spending it at a $70,000 pace. There's gonna come a time where you can't afford it anymore. You're putting it on credit cards with that stuff too. Every time they shift money to the Ukraine, what they're doing is money laundering it, and that's how it works with that stuff too. Because when we put them on a national sales tax, what happens is this: 17% is a sales tax item on essential items only, no medications, no food, or no basic needs. So what happens is that people of every kind of economic strata, whether you're on Social Security and you don't make as much, which we believe you're going to see a significant rise in that, to people who are very wealthy in that way, no one should be paying on that kind of stuff. Those are the basic points. If you did just those kinds of things, that is an incremental change that could make a big difference. Well, that doesn't fix everything. We talk about, debt forgiveness. Now let's just say people don't have any debt. There are people who like that because they've been through bankruptcy and they don't have any money at this time, right? So they didn't have the capability of getting debt. And so, but they're not, they wouldn't be, in that case, wouldn't be released from it. But if you took away the IRS taxation and then they didn't have to pay for this kind of thing, it's an incremental change of a really significant area. There's a strong belief, and because this has happened, nonprofit companies will have a sales tax exemption. So, I have a foundation, and then I have a profit business. Now, my profit business is an S corporation versus the nonprofit business is, just in that nonprofit category. I foresee in the near future that we will have, just the modifiers of, and people might still say S, it doesn't really matter, but profit, nonprofit. And what profit businesses would be is they would be taking the sales tax or be paying the sales tax. So as a business, if I bought things for my profit business, yes, I have to pay taxes on that. Sales taxes. We're not talking about for meds or other things. But if I bought a computer, that would be paying the sales taxes. But if I was buying it for the nonprofit organization, you'd start seeing it. Now I could show the receipt for that. Now, we still need an agency kind of watching that because some people are going to take advantage of that. No matter what happens, people take advantage. You're still going to see the city, the state, and the county tax that applies. Now, for instance, where one of my offices is, it's in Tulsa, and the tax is 8.517. And I'm going to get this sort of wrong here, so forgive me if I don't get this perfect on there. But I think it's like 4% from the state, and 3% or so for the county, and then 1.517 for the city. So again, if I got that wrong, don't worry about it. Just we have to have these little separators. Now it's funny because my database takes in that amount and always takes a little bit more, and then my QuickBooks takes calculates it as a whole, and so it's always off by a few cents. And at the end of the year, we have to do a weird write-off because the database was taking it correctly, but my QuickBooks separates those things out. Now, I pay the correct amount when I do sales tax, but it's always a little bit off, and those are some of the annoying things. I would love to see us get to a really rounded number with that too. But you're still going to see the city, state, and county sales tax, plus a national sales tax for those things. But let's just talk about things that will be counted. It'll only be counted on the new items. So for instance, if you have a used house or a used car, it doesn't matter how gently used or massively used something is, that's a used product. Now, why would we say that? Let me pull this off the screen for half a second. Sorry. Here's why you look at it that way, because I paid, let's just use an example of this iPhone. Now, I bought it new because I have to have the newest technology to be able to load on the newest types of software to test them. It's a long story of that kind of stuff. So I really do have to have the latest iPhone all the time. Now, and so does my staff. And you have to have the latest phones because we've got to keep up with the technology and explain it for people so that they know, and we get all the mistakes so that we can be able to deal with that. Now, so when I buy this phone, obviously should pay sales tax. But let's say I sell it, in 2 years to XYZ store who does a trade-in, whatever that might be. Or, whether it's a trade-in or I sell it to that store and they resell it to someone else. That phone itself, this puppy should not have sales tax on it a second time. That is a double taxation. And yet they love doing used taxes on used products with that stuff too. And that is an illegal type of taxation. And we need to start seeing that. Now, people, if you go, well, that's not fair. I shouldn't be charged, national sales tax on new houses and new cars. Well, guess what? All you have to do is buy a used one. Almost every house you buy is used. But if you want to go off and build your own house or have it built by, XYZ builder, well, you probably have the cash to be able to do this. And so guess what? You're going to pay sales tax. Chill out. It's going to be okay. Oops, sorry. Let me pull over here. I click in the wrong area. This is always considered a use tax. And so that is what is called a fair tax on all strata. See, doesn't matter if you're left or right. We always want the rich to pay their fair share, right? But guess what? If you have a person, and I actually talked about this quite a bit in Revelations of the Red Pill, which you can kind of go onto the website and do this. And I'm not trying to stump the trail for this book, but I talked about this exact issue. If someone makes $30,000, she's going to pay less in sales tax of every level, city, state, county, or national, than someone who's making $150,000 a year. Of course, because the $150,000 a year person is making a choice to buy things and probably buying many more new items with that too. It's totally fair. And that's the fascinating part of this. The thing that happens, we also have this tariff and excise tax issues. A long story with excise. I don't really want to get into it. And I'm going to do a deeper dive on the tariff issues as well. But the reality is we're going to see these taxes that will come in. And when you calculate the sales taxes, the tariff, the excise taxes, those things are actually fine and they can run the government, especially when we have the Doge issue that's out there. Okay, so how do you actually see this? Because it's not really payable anymore for you. When sales tax comes in, a company collects the tax. So using the example of my office, there are products that we have are like $10. Now, I'm going to tell you a funny story, but it's a $10 item. And if it's 8.517, that means we sell it for $10.85. But it's such a pain in the butt for us to, carry change around, and I don't want to have change, that what we do is we sell that item for $11, which means that we backed the tax into it. They just hear $11, they pay $11, and then that item was, 8.517, or basically 92% and change. And what we did is we backed in the taxes inside of a rounded off number. It just makes it easier for us, so we're not going to the bank every single time getting stupid change, right? It's just a funny little thing that you can actually do. But the company themselves, they take it in and they have to pay it out. So it's collected up front. And you could take the IRS, rename them, remand them with a sales tax authority, and I would probably give them a new name, National Sales Tax Agency. I probably would never use a 3-letter agency ever again. But what if you said, National Sales Tax Agency, NASTA? I don't know. Something that would be a more effective way of handling that kind of stuff. And there would be much stricter guidelines, because what we need to do is look at the nonprofit versus the profit businesses. See, this kind of agency would be bugging those kinds of places. And there could be audits that could come out for those businesses that say, hey, listen, you have a profit and a nonprofit business. Did you use those particular products? So there might be some level of audit, because that might be something that might be needed. So don't get offended by that kind of stuff. But we actually still have to see a few of those things out there. Okay? It's not trying to, attack businesses, but it is something that's out there. But businesses pay this stuff monthly. And so it's something that they have to actually apportion and send out and take care of that kind of stuff. Now, it's funny because I actually did, lots of my stuff doesn't get transmitted several times. This one was transmitted a little bit more. But most people just don't see it. Now, listen to what Peter Schiff says. Now, Trump is advocating the elimination of sales tax completely, replacing with tariffs, which is how the federal government was funded prior to 1913. The 16th Amendment was ratified precisely to replace tariffs on the middle class with income tax on the rich. However, in 1913, the federal government spent less than 2% of the GDP. Now they spend 24%. Like, what? And this guy, whoever this guy is, I don't know who he is, but that would actually make the big difference. But what most people are not seeing is this one point. I see tax people trying to suss this puppy out, right? Well, if you didn't pay, tax on tips, or you didn't pay, how would we? And the answer is he's giving you a calm. There will not be IRS taxation or income taxation. But when you eliminate the IRS, you eliminate the Fed. When you eliminate the Fed, you eliminate the slush funding. Oh, wow. Way more than you think, right? When you pair this together, and we're going to pair it together, and I've done these kind of videos, post-Brunson, the SCOTUS case, I believe it's going to come, somewhere around EBS or after, something like that. This thing makes them live on a budget that you can't possibly imagine with that too. Let's give you some examples. This is a kind of old video over here, and listen to Rand Paul talk about this. This is the dad.
Again, something happened in the 20th century where the American people decided that there would be...
The 16th Amendment happened, yeah.
Something happened where we have changed our attitude about what we want from our government. We've ushered in this overwhelming runaway welfare state that we cannot afford, and we've also become an American empire where we have troops around the world and we pay for the defense of Japan and Germany and everybody else. But at the same time, you had to have two ways of financing this. One, we decided we'd have an income tax that we would start subtly and small, that would escalate to the point that it really is the biggest ripoff in the country, along with a Federal Reserve System that allows us to monetize
but that happened
debt.
65 years ago.
Well, I know, but since 65 years, we have seen...
Okay, I'm just looking at this for a second. 1913 to 65 would be what? 1978. Think about, that's like a fascinating number. I mean, you can kind of see that's and by the way, no one talks like this on normal media today, even.
The deterioration of this society that we love. I mean, the Libertarian Society is no longer with us because of these ideas.
Yeah, but in 1922, the top tax was 70%. Right now, it's 28%. So how can you say we have gone down a slippery slope where we're getting worse and worse?
Because the amount of tax coming out of the economy is still much greater. The amount of tax the government takes is over 40%. When the founding fathers got sick and tired of the British tax and they had a tax of about 25%, the American people are rather complacent to put up with this. But more important...
Before you run away with that figure, let's remind our audience that in the first place it's not 40%, it's 39%. And the second place, 16 of it is by the individual states and localities. The federal tax is too high, but it's under 23%.
What did the indenture...
See, now here's an idiot. Still, we got idiot people, even at 78, who's trying to well, it's not 40%, it was 39%. Come on. That's one that if I was there, I'd have had troubles not reaching over and smacking him, right? That's just stupid. And then he thinks that, the state income tax goes to the states. State income tax never goes to the states, never has, never will. We just have agencies that accomplish that on a federal level. Do you know that I was audited by Oklahoma for federal income tax and state income tax? They were the drivers of this stuff. They're the thugs of the system with that too. And these idiots don't want to know the truth, or if they do know the truth, they're lying about it.
serf, what was he required to pay his master? 25%. And so we are a bit, we have enslaved ourselves. Not only are we enslaved through the tax system, but we're enslaved because we keep all the records. If we don't keep the right records, can you imagine this tax simplification bill that just came out? And if we don't learn those forms and do it right, we have a gun pointed at our head by the IRS and say, you're going to be put in prison if you don't learn to fill out those forms. How many times did they have to go through the...
How fascinating is Rand Paul on this? This is the father at the time frame. Watch this one. Now, we've talked about this one before, but I think it's helpful to watch this.
Trump's tax proposals become reality, would it shift the USA to a more consumption-based tax system, or at least away from a system that is built mostly on taxing income? And what could the impact be on Americans and the economy? Joining us now to discuss is Brendan Duke, the Senior Director of Economic Policy at the Center for American Progress Action Fund, and Casey Mulligan, Professor of Economics at the University of Chicago. Casey Mulligan, let me begin with you. Let's talk about tariffs and their power to generate income or revenue for the federal coffers here. How much could those tariffs add, and who pays tariffs? Do foreign countries, foreign companies, and foreign individuals pay the tariffs, or do Americans pay the tariffs? Casey?
On the revenue question, we have, a lot of what we buy in America is from America, regardless of whether we have tariffs. So there's a limited amount of our spending out there that can be tariffed. And some of the rates that I've heard people talk about, I'm not sure where that's coming from. In the Republican platform that President Trump presented in Milwaukee and was adopted by the RNC refers to baseline tariffs. I don't expect those to be all that large, although it's a whole Republican operation. So a Republican Congress and House would have to decide what they mean by baseline tariffs and how much.
Brendan, let's talk about the idea that part of what may be afoot here, as President Trump has moved away in his proposals to exempt overtime, tips, and Social Security income from taxes. Is he moving away from a reliance on the income tax as the principal way the federal government is funded, and in any sense toward a consumption tax?
Yeah, sure. So as you guys said, he's proposed about $10 trillion of tax cuts, basically all on the income tax side. So that reduces our reliance on income taxes, which the wealthy disproportionately pay. On the other hand, he has pitched 10 to 20% tariffs on every imported good entering the United States, which is a consumption tax. In some sense, as Vice President Harris has said, works in effect like a national sales tax. So that's raising our reliance on consumption taxes, which low and middle income families are going to pay more of than they do income taxes. So it's a shift of our revenue mix from income taxes to consumption taxes. And in that way, there's actually some similarities to traditional Republican ideas, of shifting our reliance to a sales tax or a VAT, but in kind of a weird way, and actually a way that could.
You see, some of these people, we are trying to rely upon them to give us information. But even both sides, they got two people on, moderately sides. They weren't, right, left, heavy right, left. They're kind of moderate. I think the last guy was a little more lefty leaning, and the other guy was more moderate in that viewpoint. But none of them figured it out. Now, even the reporter, the guy that was talking at the desk, actually was closer to the point. He was talking about the reliance upon IRS taxation versus national sales tax, and he was talking about that from federal government kind of standards. This is the first time you really get to see, you're hearing pieces of this. Now, some of you might look at this and say, what does this have to do with anything? By the way, again, if we kill off IRS taxation, we move in and we kill off what the Fed does. If we kill off what the Fed does, we're in a gold spec standard, and we've changed the whole dynamic of monetary situations. You want to see an improvement, an effective improvement? This is a massive effective improvement. And I think you guys are going to say, wait a second, we've been waiting for this a long time. I know. I've been talking about it since 2020. And now in 2024, these people are starting to dribble out the information. But if you noticed, 1978-ish, when Rand Paul was talking about this stuff, like give me, I mean, give me a break. This has been there for a long time. It's been in the ethosphere a very long time. It's time for it to end, and it's coming, guys. And that is the piece, one of the major pieces of NESARA. Hope it helped you out.